the workshop of 100ms on building a Clubhouse-like app using 100ms iOS SDK. My name is Nilay, and let's meet Dimitri and Yogesh, who would be taking you through all this wonderful workshop. So Dimitri and Yogesh are our iOS engineers at 100ms with more than a decade of experience in iOS engineering and software development, right? A little about 100ms. So 100ms is basically, it enables an application with video conferencing capabilities, which are live, interactive, scalable, and gold standard features, right? With pre-built templates. Whether it is video conferencing, you want to establish a classroom, virtual events, audio rooms, anything, 100ms can do it. So the agenda of today's workshop is first, how Clubhouse works, and basically, what is Clubhouse? Second, an introduction to the 100ms SDK. What makes it so special? Third, how to build a Clubhouse-like app using 100ms iOS SDK. And fourth, we will have a Q&A session, and we will also announce giveaways where you are going to get some awesome swags by 100ms. So yeah, by the end of the workshop, you will definitely learn the basics about how Clubhouse works and what are the features and capabilities you can incorporate using 100ms iOS SDK and launch your own Clubhouse-like app. Interesting part is how to take this 100ms, swag. So yeah, while we are having this workshop, you can just go to Twitter and post feedbacks about the session with hashtags like buildwith100ms and hashtag Webrtc, and also tagging our Twitter handle @100ms live. At the end of the session, we are going to announce 3 winners who will be the winners of this social contest, and also ship our 100ms swags to them. Meanwhile, we also have a dedicated Discord server for this entire workshop. So I request you all to join that to get updated feedbacks on the results. We also have a great community of developers, and it gives me pride to say that we are the world's largest growing developer, and it's quite speedy. So do not forget to join us on Discord. So yeah, that's a very short introduction, and over to you, Dimitri.
Thanks, Nilay. I'm gonna start off by talking a bit about how Clubhouse works. And I hope everybody knows what Clubhouse is. It's basically, just in case, an app where you can join a room where you can have a voice chat. And there are different types of roles in the room. So like there are hosts and speakers and who can actually talk. And there's audience who can only listen until someone makes someone from the audience a speaker as well. So the way Clubhouse does audio communication is that it uses a Webrtc technology underneath. And Webrtc stands for Web Real-Time Communication. It's an open standard created by Google. And as well as Google provides a open source free library that allows you to have this audio video communication for different platforms, right? And the way that usually works is, so it can work in a peer-to-peer fashion, but for large rooms with lots of participants, that is not practical. So usually the way it is done is each peer will send, peer or a person in the room will send his audio and video to a server that then distributes the video to other people in the room, basically. And having mentioned that this is an free and open source library, I would say that is far from being ready to use, because it requires still a lot of infrastructure to be set up. Like, for example, you need a signaling server, you need a relay server, you need to manage firewalls and VPNs. So all these things are really complicated to set up, and hence there are companies that provide you all this infrastructure, all these ready-to-use SDKs as a server, as a service. And 100ms is one of these providers. And what sets 100ms apart from other providers is we really strive to make developers' life as easy as possible by providing all different high-level APIs that reduce amount of code that you need to write. Like, for example, things like remotely muting someone, kicking someone from the room, ending the room, all these things that you usually need to have an additional backend service in place, or something like Firebase. This can be done with the 100ms SDK itself. So I'm going to discuss what we are going to build today. And we will create an app that has two screens. One is a main screen where you can enter your name and select the role, and then you can join a room. So we will have three roles: host, speaker, and audience. And once you join the room, you go to the meeting screen, where you can see a list of participants. You can see who is currently speaking. It will be highlighted with a blue glow. And if you join as audience, you will also have a raise hand button, and the host will see you have raised hand and have an option to promote you to a speaker. Okay, so before we actually start building, I want to discuss a few concepts first. So there are three things you'll be dealing with when you work with HMS SDK. So these are room, peer, and role. And room is obviously a space where people join and interact with each other. And peer is a synonym for a person or someone who joined the room. Doesn't have to be a person, can be a bot. Then we have a role. And a role is a really powerful concept because it allows you to specify the rules of what one can do. Like a host and a speaker can publish their audio to the room so that others can hear them. But for example, audience role will not let you share your audio. And for example, host can also end the room and can kick someone from the room and also promote someone from audience to speaker, which other roles can do. Okay, and since we have defined a role, so the roles will be defined in the our 100ms dashboard, and SDK understands these roles, and hence you don't need to write extra code for like deciding who should be speaking and who should be muted. All this will be automatically fetched from the dashboard, and it will work out of the box. So I'll go over a few main APIs that we're gonna use from the SDK. So obviously, this is join and leave, which we will need to join and leave the room. Then we will get a local peer to be able to mute our local audio track, and also to be able to see what our current role is to update the UI appropriately. Also, we would need to know who's in the room, and we would also use a change role API to promote someone from who has raised their hand to speakers and back. So next thing we need to discuss is authentication. Like you can't just join any room with any role, right? We need a way for you to tell 100ms that this user is authorized to join this room with this role, because we can't allow just, even if we authorize someone to join the room, it doesn't mean they can join as a host. So the way it is done is that we use a JWT token. And if you are not familiar with this, it's just basically a encoded string that encodes a JSON payload and also signs it with a shared secret that only 100ms and your backend share. And within that payload, we will have a room ID, a user ID, and a role. So like the server 100ms will know that you're allowed to join this role, this room with this role. So the way it's usually structured is your backend will generate your JWT token and will send it across to your app, and then your app will send the JWT token upon joining to 100ms server, and the 100ms server will check the token as valid and like will authorize you, right? But if you're just prototyping, you might not have your backend set up, and since it's also not a good idea to hard code a token in the app, the 100ms provides you with the sample temporary backend that you can use while you're prototyping. And when you're done and ready to go live, you can switch that for your production backend. So now we can actually proceed to building the app. So I have created a boilerplate project, which you can clone and follow along. And I'm going to share it in the chat. Right. So when you clone the project, sorry, the repo, you'll see two folders. One is a complete finished code, and one is a boilerplate project, which I'm going to use now. So I have the project open, and before we actually start, we need to create an account in 100ms. So to do that, you open 100ms.live website and click on the Try for Free button, And here you just enter your email and password and sign up. So I have already done that. And once you're through, you get to this screen where you can actually create your 100ms app. So first thing to do is to pick a subdomain name. And I'm gonna pick something like a Clubhouse webinar. Okay, so I'm gonna click next. It's gonna ask for some more details about you. I'm gonna skip this for now. Whoa, and my session expired. That's unfortunate. So I'm gonna start over. Okay, I'm gonna quickly verify my email. Okay, let's do this again. So Clubhouse group 22. We have a lot of clubhouses. So okay, so now we need to set up a template. And a template is basically a collection of roles, right? So you can have different templates for, say, you have different kinds of apps, like one of your apps is online classroom, and one of your apps is a Clubhouse type of app. So we're gonna create a custom template for our app and select create roles. So in this app, as I discussed, we're gonna use 3 roles, host, audience, and a speaker. So I'm gonna quickly create these. Okay. So as we mentioned before, so host can share audio. We're not gonna use video or screen share in this. So host can also change participant role. And we don't need anything else from this for now. So now the audience cannot share anything and can only subscribe to host and the speaker. And host subscribes to speaker and other hosts. And subscribes means basically whose audio I want to be able to listen to. So speaker can share audio, can subscribe to host another speaker, and cannot change anyone's role. And I'm gonna create another role, and I'll call it speaker wannabe. And I'm gonna use this role for someone who has raised their hand, so that we have a distinction to be able to show in UI, so the host will know who raised their hands. So again, just like speaker, it can't share anything. Oh, sorry, just like audience. And subscribes to host and speaker. And lastly, I need to allow a change role for audience as well, because at the time of raise hand, we will use the change role for self to be able to go from audience to speaker wannabe. So that completes the role setup. And I'm gonna go and set up the app. Okay, and we are done. So as you can see, it created a few links for us to use, and this is like really convenient because it deployed a web app that we can already use, and it's just like the one we are using right now, so that we can have a demo and also test while prototyping. So if I say join as audience, it will open the same web app, and we can experiment with this and also share with someone to test. So I'm gonna do that and share a few links with Yogesh so he can help us test this. Audience and speaker. Okay. So now if I click go to dashboard, I'm in my dashboard. So few things we're gonna need from here. First, if you go to developer tab, you'll have this token endpoint, and this is the temporary token endpoint that I have mentioned previously. So we're gonna copy that, and there is a token provider class that I have pre-created, which gonna be fetching our token for us. And next thing we will need is to create a room. So let's call the room Clubhouse. And here you can select a region, and so that you use the region based on what you think your users will be majorly located in. So I'm gonna select India, for example. So now I can create a room, and yeah, Aniket is welcoming me on board. Skip this. So now I have a room ID, and I also insert this here. Okay, so we pretty much set up. So one last thing we will need is to actually add the Hms Sdk dependency. And you can do that by finding our repo, which you can do by going to 100ms live, and in resources menu, go to GitHub, and the 100ms iOS SDK will be pinned in here. So copy the URL, and we will use Swift Package Manager to add HMS SDK. Okay, it is done. Cool. So let me first run the app and see what we have so far. So right now we already have this login screen pre-built, and I enter something and press join room. I just get an empty screen and nothing happens. So this is just like boilerplate UI that I have pre-created, so we can just focus on the integration bit. Okay, so let's start actually integrating the SDK. So first things first, we need a token fetched. And in the main view controller that controls the login screen, I have just, so once you join, tap on join button, we get the values from the name and role controls. And currently we just call showroom. And what we actually want to do is fetch the token first and then display the controllers. So let's do that. So I'm going to use this token provider class that I have created, and I'm calling get token. And what it actually does is it will do a post request to this endpoint. And in the post body, it will give the room ID and user ID and role, and in response you will receive a token. So let's actually launch and check now that we got the token. Okay, and it's fine. And now I'm gonna show you that this looks just as what I showed you on that slide. All right. So once we have the token, we can actually join. And let's do that in the room view controller, which is the model presented view controller that we just seen. So first, I'm going to import the Hms Sdk. Then I'm going to need a HMS instance. And I'm going to create this by calling Hms Sdk.build. So upon the loading of the view, we will call the join function. And inside this, we will do two things. We will create a config that has basically the name and the auth token. And then we will go and we will call the join API. And we also pass the delegate, and the delegate will be this view controller only. So for that, we will need to first conform to the HMS update listener protocol. Right. So this will allow to listen to the main SDK callbacks. Right, so it will tell us that we have joined the room. It will inform us that someone else has joined the room as well. And whenever like someone mutes or leaves, so all these callbacks tell us about the events happening in the room. So for now, we're gonna leave this as is, and the only thing we're gonna implement now is on error, and this is called when something irrecoverable happens, like the connection has been lost and the SDK was trying to reconnect for a while but could not. So in this case, we will show an error pop up and go back to the login screen. So now, having that done, we should be actually able to join the room. Okay. And I'm gonna join as audience. And I'm gonna also ask Yogesh to join as speaker and say something. Okay. So yeah, with this, we already joined the room and we should be able to hear someone if someone also joins. Let's wait, maybe Yogesh will join.
Dimitri, can you share the link?
Yeah, I have selected you the link. Or alternatively, I'll join from my iPhone actually. Okay. I got a tap on my iPhone, and as you can see, the audio is coming. Cool, cool. So just like that, we have achieved a audio chat in the room, right? Just a few lines of code get us this far. So the next thing we want to do is actually see the oh, I forgot one important thing is, which is leave, right? And you should call HMS leave when you are moving away from this room, because if you just, for example, if you just destroy the view controller, the server will not know that you have left and will assume that you are trying to reconnect from the network failure, right? And only after a minute it will let other peers in the room know that you have left. Okay, so now let's actually add a way to display people in the room. And for that, we will need a model to connect to our collection view that I have already added to this view controller. As you can see, this collection new data source is just returning nothing. So the way our model is going to be set up is we're going to have some sections, right? And for each kind of role, there will be a separate section. So, for example, audience is a section, and within that audience, there is a list of peers. So as you can see, like briefly, we'll have a section class, and it will have a type, which can be any of like speaker, audience, or raised hand, basically. So let's go back and create this section model. So I have defined the section type as speakers, raised hand, and audience, and only host will see this raised hand section. It will not be visible to audience and speakers. So one more thing is a display name, which was just for UI. And this is accessory function that is going to provide a section type for a role, right? Just like I said, so both speakers and host will be in the speaker session, and audience will be in the audience, and speaker wannabes will be visible only to host. Right. So let's now go into the room view controller and start populating this model. So first of all, we need a instance variable to hold the array of sections. And whenever we update the sections, we also want to reload our table view. So now I'm going to create another helper function. Right. So, oh, I'm going to need this as well. Sorry. I'm going to pause for a bit. And before we go into displaying the peers in the room, I want to actually display the mic mute and raise hand button. So to do that, I'm going to create a few helper functions. So one is the local role, which will tell us which role we are currently at. And another helper function is can speak, which will tell us if we can publish audio. So it's basically a switch, and only host and speaker are allowed to publish audio. So based on this, we will either show or hide the mute and raise hand button. So mute button will be hidden if we cannot speak, and raise hand, and the raise hand button will be hidden if we can't speak. So now let's go and see if it works. I should use the similar. So local role is implemented by asking HMS for a local peer and asking for its role. And this is a helper function I've written. So basically, a peer has a role, and a role has a name. And I'm using that name string to map the role to this enum that is like more convenient to use than strings. So now if I join as audience, I should be able to see a raise hand button once. Oh, sorry, not just yet. So the setup button states function is not getting called, so I need to call it when we have joined and we know the role. So now let's relaunch. Yep. So since we joined as host, we see the mic button. And since we joined as audience, we see the raise hand button. Okay, so now let's get back to showing the peers in the room. And let's populate the model now. So the way I have done this is I'm first getting the list of peers. This is done by querying for a room, and then the room will have a list of peers, right? So then I'm creating a section instance for each section type that we have defined. And these will serve as buckets that we're gonna sort the peers in the room into, right? So next we iterate over peers, and we decide which section type this peer belongs to. And then basically this type is also an index in our array that we have created here. So then we just append the peer into this section. And finally, we filtered out empty sections and update the sections instance variable. So once we have populated our model, we need to connect it to the data source. And I'm gonna remove this and replace it with the actual data source. So as you can see, we are now using our sections model to give the number of sections, and we also give how many peers in each section. And this safe thing is just a convenience thing to check that the index is in bounds, and it will return an optional nil if it is out of bounds. So this is just to be safe. All right. So next thing I'm gonna discuss is actually setting up a collection view cell. So we are first getting a HMS peer instance from the sections that we have created, right? And then we are getting a instance of the participant collection view cell that I have created. And on the cell, we update the name by putting peer name into it. And the mute icon will be updated based on whether this peer's audio track is mute. So since peer might not have an audio track, we are this property is an optional. So if that's the case, we're gonna assume that it is not mute. Right, so the last thing we need to do is actually reload the model once any room event happens, like when someone joins or leaves or mutes himself. So let's add reload model in all of these callbacks. Okay, so with that, we should be now able to see the participants. Okay, so I'm gonna join as a host, And I see a tile for myself. And if I mute, no, oh, we have not implemented the mute yet. So let's try with more people in the room. Yogesh, can you join now?
Yep, I'm trying to.
I'm also joining with my iPhone. Yep, I joined as audience from my iPhone. Oops, equal. And I left. And as you can see, all the updates are reflecting in the UI. All right. So we have not implemented this mute thing, so let's now go ahead and do that. So I have this action handler for the UI button that does nothing at the moment. So let's add the implementation. So first thing we want to do is update the mute button state, so it reflects that its current status. And the next thing, as I have mentioned before, we're going to ask HMS instance for a local peer, and we're going to ask it for a local audio track, and we will update the mute status on it. So now let's try and do that. The iPhone. Oh, hey, Yogesh. So let's see if I'm muting. Okay. And now there's no echo.
Can you hear me?
Yep. All right. Cool. So next thing we want to do is show the status of speaker when someone is speaking, because in the since you can't see person's video, you want to see some indication like who is it, whose voice we are hearing right now. So we're gonna first add the instance variable who's gonna store the IDs of current speakers. So and again, once this is updated, we're gonna reload the table view. So then we're gonna use the update so whenever someone's speaking in the room, the HMS Sdk will call this callback with a list of speakers. So in here, we will take each HMS speaker has a peer reference, and we will store the peer ID in that. So now we can update the cell as well. And basically, if our peer ID is in the list of speakers, then we will mark this cell as is speaking. So let's now go ahead and do that. I'm join as audience. And Yogesh, can you join again? And can you speak something?
So what should we discuss about
the chapters? Yogesh is lighting up. Okay. So lastly, we want to show how to actually do the raised hand. Right. So let's get the raise hand callback implemented. So once this gets, once the raise hand button is tapped, we're gonna again get the reference to the local peer, and we want to change the local peer's role from audience to speaker wannabe. And if he presses the raise hand again, we want to change back to audience. So I have written this like helper function, which finds so to call the change role API, we need the reference to HMS role. And we do that by iterating over roles and finding the one whose name is corresponding to our role enum value. So then basically we call the HMS change role API, right? So now let me show you how it looks. I'm gonna need my iPhone as well.
I'm joining from another device as well.
Okay. So can you join as audience and raise your hand?
Sure.
If you're running the finished app, right?
Yep.
Okay, let's try that. So I'm gonna be a host. And you need to join as audience and tap raise hand. And if you tap raise hand, we should see that this section gets changed to audience. Raised hand. Yep. All right. So we can see that Yogesh tapped raise hand, and now we can think about how we can make him a speaker. So let's do this next. So for this, I'm going to use a did select callback for the collection view cell. And let's go ahead and do that. So here I have added the did select cell. And in here, we're going to have, again, the reference to the peer that corresponds to the style, the cell. And basically, if this peer is a speaker wannabe, then we show an option to move him to speakers. And if it's a speaker, then we show the option to move them to audience. And this is a helper function that just creates a UI alert action that, if tapped, calls that change role function that we have seen previously. And then we are showing an action sheet via UI alert controller. Okay, so let's now try and do that. Hopefully Yogesh is still keeping his hand raised for us.
Yep.
Okay, there he is. So if we tap on this now, we can have move to speakers, and then we can see that it actually worked. His SDK automatically started publishing his audio to the room. So yeah, I mean, this is all it takes to build a Clubhouse app, guys. And that's all I wanted to show you in this demo. And now we're gonna open this session for your questions.
If you guys have any questions, put them in chat.
Great. So we have a question from Cyberwake. Do we have a cross-platform SDK for it? I guess it's do we.
Yogesh, you want to take that?
Yep, we do. So we have SDKs from Android, iOS, Web, Flutter, React Native. So it's pretty much cross-platform.
Okay, so the next question is the Flutter SDK available on PubDev?
Yes, it's available.
Great.
I can post the link if you want. I'll post the link on chat.
So yeah, Cyberweek, we have the link on the chat. You can just go there and explore the SDK. Any more questions, people? Ask them anything you want. These are the big brains of iOS engineering. Come on.
All right, looks like I made it really clear.
Okay, about the pricing.
Okay, pricing. I guess we will need someone from the sales team to help with this.
Definitely, Cyberweek. You can send me your concerns at Hms.live, right? And we will help you with the pricing also. Meanwhile, you can also explore the link that Kshitij has attached in the chat. So yeah, all dear viewers, thank you for joining in this session. And yeah, I request you all to join our Discord server where you can ask anything, questions directly to your guest, Dimitri, or our Android developers and web developers, anything that you want, right? So yeah, bye, good night, have a great day.
Thanks, everyone.